Welcome to another Q&A. This Q&A is about calculating your flow rate. Now, the reason why you want to calculate your flow rate is because there's a lot of fluid dynamics in cleaning windows efficiently, but the most important thing is to understand how far the jets are going to squirt with whichever brush you're using. And flow rate is actually a constant in any cross-sectional part of your fluid dynamic system. So you can measure the flow rate at your filter, but if you add your hose and tube, then because of the wall friction resistance, the flow rate is going to reduce, the back pressure is going to increase, and therefore what we want to measure is the flow rate with your system completely intact. So you've got the tap on the way you want. If you've got a pump, you've got the pump on, you've got the filter in the system, and you've got all your hose and tube. Once you've done that, we can actually take the brush off and just measure the water from the tube. It doesn't matter if you add 2 pencil jets, 4 pencil jets, a bodgy rinse bar, or a radial brush with 26 jet streams across the top of it. The flow rate is going to be exactly the same. What's going to change is the velocity of the water through the final restriction. The final restriction is actually the orifice of the jets, the size of the orifice of the jets times the number of jets. A radial brush has 26 jets across the top, so it's going to squirt less distance because of the velocity, a lower velocity, than if you had 2 pencil jets, in which case it might squirt 3 or 4 feet compared to 8 to 10 inches. Okay, so what you want to do in imperial terms, let's say you grab an empty bottle of Coke, it's 16 ounces. What we know, there are 8 16-ounce bottles in 1 gallon, and we want to get to a gallon per minute measurement, flow rate. Our target is half gallon a minute, okay? So you would have your whole system set up, your empty bottle, time, how long it takes from the tube to fill the bottle. Let's say it takes 5 seconds, okay? We would then multiply 5 seconds times 8, so we have the number of seconds that it takes to fill 1 gallon. And then we divide that number, so 5 times 8 is 40. We're going to divide that by 60 to give us a per minute figure. So 40 divided by 60 is 0.667, right? So about 2/3 of a gallon per minute. And our target is half gallon a minute. So you could actually, in this case, turn the tap or spigot down a little. Now, if you deal in metric, our target is 2 liters a minute. A bottle of Coke might be 330 mils. Right, so we know there are 330 ml bottles in a liter, right? So we would time it. Let's say it took 5 seconds again to fill 330 mils. Then we would take that 5 seconds times 3, and that would give us 15 seconds for 1 liter. And then we would say, well, divide 15 by 60, or you'd say how many 15s fit into 60, and that would give you 4 liters a minute, okay? So the benefit, now that you know once you calculate it and get it looking like half gallon a minute or 2 liters a minute, you can now plan that's what it's meant to look like. Like, you won't have to measure your flow rate on every site because you know exactly what the brush needs to look like, and then you can turn the flow rate up and down. Remember, the higher you go, the lower the flow rate, because you've got the resistance from the head of gravity. It's 5 psi per floor. So you would want to increase your flow rate if you're going up to 3 stories, 4 stories, and so on, like that. But that gives you the principles. And if you come across a different situation and you want to calculate with a different brush or whatever the flow rate is. Now, with radial brushes, all radials, radial rockers, deep frames without base jets are designed to work with exactly the same, whether they're 14-inch or 18-inch. They're all designed to work with half gallon a minute, 2 liters a minute. And radial light and radial high flow are available to be purchased at this high flow rate of 2 liters a minute, half gallon a minute. But you can also order a radial light or a radial ultralight at a low flow rate, which is around 1/3 of a gallon per minute, or 1.5 liters per minute, okay? So the reason we want loads of water, right, is to make sure that we have a great rinse, because we do on-glass rinse with radial. Doesn't matter if the glass is hydrophobic or hydrophilic. what happens is that the bristles of a radial brush break the surface tension of the window. The water doesn't go through the bristles, so the jet streams go above the bristles, the water falls down onto the bristles. The bristles have broken the surface tension of the glass, the water inherits that broken surface tension, and the water cascades down the glass, which is what every window cleaner wants. It cascades down the glass in the downstroke. And that, as long as we haven't introduced dirt into our rinse water, that means that you're going to get a spot-free finish by agitating on the upstroke, rinsing on the downstroke, no go back and rinse. And that's where we get our great efficiency. You get an amazing hourly rate out of our brushes, and you're going to fit more jobs into a day. So it's a massive game changer as to how much money you make from window cleaning if you take this on board and actually understand and learn it. Now, the other benefit of the high flow rate from radial brushes is because the water doesn't go through our bristles. They're bristle blades, so they're same as a squeegee blade basically as far as the amount of water that goes through them. And so when we're going across the top edge and then round the corners and down the frame, we always say angle the brush 5 or 10 degrees so that all that water runs to one side and it chases any sticky debris, like especially spider webs and spider nests. It chases them down because there's so much water flowing down. It's very different from running with 2 or 4 pencil jets or little fan jets or stuff like that, and especially with brushes that let the water go straight through, so you don't get that benefit of that high flow rate being put into a stream. The other thing that we want to say was, you'd say, well, why do you need this half gallon a minute? Why have you designed the brushes around half gallon a minute, and why can't I use more or less or whatever like that? So the design of all the radial brushes is that when you're going across the top edge, you don't want to add water above where you've agitated, because then if you wet above where you've agitated, whether it's the top of the frame or the top of the glass missing the frame, what's going to happen is that you're going to add dirt into your rinse water, yeah, and then that's potentially going to spot. So we want to make sure that when the brush is at 35 to 45 degrees going across the top edge of the window, that the top jets, right? So let's say you're going this way, then the top jets here, those jets are going to receive less water, right? Because water always finds the path of least resistance. Because we have gravity, more water will come out the bottom of the brush, less water will come out the top of the brush. So those jets basically drop down and they don't squirt above where your bristles are. Now, once you go around the corner, the water's all going towards the edge and flushing across the edge. So it's only when we're going across the top edge that we want the design of the radial brush to behave in a certain way. And so that's why we standardize what is the flow rate and then design the brush around the flow rate that we know is achievable, with a modern RO filter, up to 300 feet of hose, working up to 3 or 4 stories without the need of a pump in a lot of locations. Obviously, if your tap pressure is 30 psi, you may need, and you're trying to run 300 feet of tube or hose, then you may need to boost it a little bit. But that's the reason, yeah? The goal is to have you clean windows faster. If you clean windows faster, you get a higher hourly rate and you get to do more work, yeah, in a day. So it's incredibly life-changing, and we've had some amazing testimonials from window cleaners who have learnt the radial technique, learnt the fluid dynamics, and have changed the way they clean windows, changed their lives. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this one. We'll talk to you again soon.